Hey, incredible. Hi, welcome everybody. Before we get started with the call, I'm going to introduce my wonderful colleague, Ashley Anthony, who's going to give a wonderful land acknowledgement before we kick off the BC Community Call for June. So, Ashley, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet most of you. My name is Ashley Anthony. I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of what is colonially known as St. John, New Brunswick. So, the opposite ocean, if you will. But I did spend some solid time living in Terrace, BC. And I always tell everybody that BC owns part of my soul because it definitely does. It's such a place to just to fill yourself with all that is glorious about the world. I'm the education and engagement manager here. If you were at the BC training in Vancouver, you may have seen a bit of my song and dance, but for those who have not come into contact with me, it's so great to be in the same space with you. Before we begin this evening, we want to respectfully recognize and acknowledge the relationship that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis across Canada have with the land that we, all Canadians and our visitors, live on and enjoy. The Climate Reality Project Canada's office is located on land that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous people, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. And CRPC honors and recognizes and respects these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters in which we are today. I am coming from Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoqiyik, the Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Wabanaki nations, or the Abenaki Confederacy. And of course, wonderfully, we're meeting in your homelands today. And CRPC acknowledges the fact that many territories in what is now known colonially as British Columbia are unceded, meaning that Indigenous people never surrendered their sovereignty over the land or entered into treaties. So we recognize the dispossession of these territories and the inherent jurisdictions that Indigenous people still hold over them. In acknowledging this traditional territory, we also recognize the Indigenous people's stewardship of the land that predates the establishment of the earliest European colonies in British Columbia. The RPC holds a deep, deep respect for these traditional territories and the richness that they hold in terms of histories, languages, knowledge systems, and cultures of Indigenous people who continue to live upon them. It also reminds us that each of the 634 different First Nation communities, the 53 Inuit communities, and 8 Métis settlements across this nation all have a unique historic, cultural, spiritual, and environmentally sustainable connection to the land that their people and ancestors have inhabited since time immemorial. So we encourage all Canadians and visitors to these lands to learn about and regularly acknowledge the historic and current relationships that exist between the unceded land on which we live and work and prosper and enjoy, and of course, the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also encourage all Canadians to consider how they can personally contribute to Canada's reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. So, again, I'm so grateful to be here with you. And I just want to go over the purpose of the BC Community Calls. So, the call here is a space for the Community Climate Hub members, climate reality leaders, and of course, the broader BC climate movement, including activists, researchers, and practitioners, to connect, learn, and collaborate. So, each call begins with a 30-minute presentation from a guest speaker or a featured campaign, followed by time for knowledge and intel sharing among the participants in this lovely space here tonight. So our goal is to share knowledge across the region and sectors, to build collaboration on climate initiatives and campaigns, to support advocacy and action at the local and provincial levels, of course, to stay informed on all the latest climate science, policy, and organizing, and of course, outcomes that are happening right now, and to offer support and resources for all who are working towards climate solutions. So, just a couple housekeeping notes. A reminder that this video is going to be recorded. You can keep yourself on mute if you're not talking, and feel free to ask questions in the chat. We love that. The more interaction, the better. We'll get them in the Q&A, and we'll have, lots of time for that. Make sure that you're generous with the Zoom React feature as well. I feel like that's always one of the funnest parts of meetings. So with that, I'll pass it back to Sherry.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Ashley, for that land acknowledgement and for talking about the purpose of these BC community calls. So before we dive into today's presentations, I just wanted to give folks a little bit of context about why we're gathering here today and what today's call is about. So this spring, at the end of April, the Climate Friendly Homes Tour took place across BC, wonderfully coinciding with a lot of Earth Day activities. And this initiative was organized by Community Energy Association, and it created opportunities for people across the province to explore real-life examples of energy-efficient, sustainable, climate-friendly homes. We know a lot of folks in our Climate Reality Project network, especially those involved in community climate hubs, have a deep passion and expertise when it comes to home retrofits and local climate action. So it was really incredible to see so many folks within our network take on these leadership roles in organizing these tours in their own communities. So today is really about spotlighting and celebrating that work, learning from their experiences, and spotlighting this initiative that not only built public awareness, but also strengthened community organizing in a really cool, tangible way. And so with that, we're really excited to hear from a few speakers who helped bring this tour to life on the ground. And that's why we're focusing on this topic today. So first off, our first presenter will be Lisa Mack, who is coming from Community Energy Association. She is a climate solutions specialist. And then it will be followed by two folks from our Community Climate Hub network, James Rowley from the Maple Ridge Climate Hub, and Cheryl Lewis from the New Westminster Climate Action Hub. And so with that, we can go ahead and get started. So I'll pass it off to Lisa from Community Energy Association.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sherry and Ashley. I am joining today from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations, also known as Vancouver. I am eternally grateful to be able to live, work, and play on these beautiful lands. For those of you who haven't met me, as Sherry said, my name is Lisa Mack. I'm with Community Energy Association. If you're unfamiliar with us, we're a BC-based nonprofit working to support local governments and First Nations with their energy and climate initiatives and policies. And similar to these climate calls, we hold a lot of space for local governments to come together and connect with each other, learn from experts in each other, share the challenges that they're facing when it comes to energy and climate policies, co-create solutions, find opportunities to collaborate, that sort of thing. So I definitely resonate with a lot of what you had said earlier, Ashley. Anyway, and so one of the key topics that we come together on is around new construction and existing buildings, just recognizing that the built environment is one of the biggest opportunities for communities to decarbonize. And so while we typically work in the policy and programming space, there was a lot of desire to celebrate local leadership and really understand and focus on the folks who are doing the work and who are taking the steps that we are trying to encourage. And so that's really what kind of initiated the Climate Friendly Homes Tour. So back in 2022, myself and some colleagues and some of our local government peers were kind of just trying to figure out ways to celebrate that local leadership and showcase homes who are either being built to high performance standards or being retrofitted to net zero standards and what that looks like. And the idea behind it was really as a way to celebrate that behavior that we want to see, but also increase that awareness for the general public. As we all know, there is a ton of information out there. There's a lot of confusion. It's really tricky to navigate all of that, but by being able to provide that human aspect and sharing those stories and being able to kind of see the technology, whether that's a heat pump or an EV charger at work, and kind of just understand that these are like real life solutions. They're tangible. They're not some mythical kind of space age technology that's just being touted. Like these are like real, very accessible things that actions can do. That's something that we really wanted to try to be able to just elevate and showcase that and share those stories because we think sharing stories is incredibly important and those narratives are have really great impact. And so we kind of developed what eventually became the Climate Friendly Homes, and we kind of set up the website, kind of found local government partners to participate in it and get their support in wanting to showcase the actions that are happening in their own backyards. And we were able to connect with some incredible community organizations, such as the climate hubs. And so I'm going to try and keep this list very short and sweet because I really want the focus to be on James and Cheryl. Like they just did incredible work in Maple Ridge and New West and beyond. I also want to give a quick shout out. We ran the tour in 2023 as well, and we had incredible support from the West and East Kootenay climate hubs. I don't think I see them here, but yeah, I want to give them a huge shout out because that was also an incredible tour, and that was what kind of made us think, hey, let's do it again. And so we were able to run it this year. And so yeah, with that, like we definitely could not have done it without that community support. And it was absolutely inspiring to see just like the passion and the energy and the efforts that you've all put into it and made it what it was. So with that, I would love to turn it over to James and to Cheryl.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that great introduction into the Climate Friendly Homes Tour. And with that, I'll pass it over to James Rowley from the Maple Ridge Climate Hub.
Hey there, it's so nice to be here. Yeah, Maple Ridge is the traditional unceded territory of the uh, Katzie and Kwantlen First Nations shared territory. Um, and they've been here, documented since 11,000 years ago. So it's really is time immemorial. Um, So I got involved. I started the way I got into climate friendly homes tours is retrofitting our 1923 home and the challenges there. And it feels kind of lonely as someone trying to retrofit an older home or even build a new home. It's a lonely process. And I thought, well, if we're going through the work, I want to share the story. And that's right. Lisa and Sherry both commented that this is about stories and that magic of personal connection between the real people who are doing the work. The first tour I gave was in 2014, and this was a before picture of the house and the plans that we were making, trying to get a retrofit project together, which ultimately was not successful. We just carried on our own. So when I heard about the climate friendly homes tour that was getting started up, I was like, yes, that's great. And it's really kind of brave of Community Energy Association to take that on. It's a very slippery fish to try and grab. It's difficult to I mean, you have to imagine being a homeowner who is retrofitting or building a passive house, retrofitting a house, and somebody's contacting you and saying, "Would you like to open your home to the public?" Um, so I was helping out this time with finding homeowners. I'm really interested in some of the takeaways. I really interested in the conversation that's kind of come after. I'm really interested in what Cheryl has to say about the New West because it looked like they did some really amazing things. So I have a few quick slides because I know that visuals are really fun, and but I don't want to dwell too much on Maple Ridge. I think it's going to be different. Everybody can see me and hear me. See the screen? Is good. Oh, no, I haven't shared it yet.
I was gonna say.
Okay, hopefully you can see that. So in Maple Ridge, we were successful in finding 4 homes. You'll find homeowners very enthusiastic about it, but they're not easy to find immediately. So let me see. Oh, what's going on? There we go. So one of the homes was, it's actually just finished now, 2025. They call it Casa Moreno. It is the first certified passive house in Maple Ridge. They're wonderful. The photo on the right was an initial tour that we did as Climate Hub. You see city officials there and members of also the Maple Ridge Repair Cafes as well. So that was one of them. Then we had two homes on the left. There's a 1981, it's just a standard 1981 home, but they threw 19 kilowatts of solar panels on it. And when you do that, you get enthusiastic. And all he was going to do is meet people outside the home and show them on the iPad how much energy he's producing and how much his bills have changed. Um, so it's a nice mix in Maple Ridge. And then on the right, this is a 2019 net zero passive house. This is a guy named Wally. He's in Langley. He's so enthusiastic. Langley wasn't even on the tour, but when we were reaching out, he was like, please, he's been giving tours the whole time for years. And he'll just say, please contact me. And three people, yeah, come on down and I'll show you. He's so proud. There's no fossil fuels, and he's actually net zero, which is quite a feat. And then this is my house. So I use our house as an example. We bought it in 2007. So these are before pictures. It was built in 1923. It's a heritage property with fully protected. You can see on the right the little pock marks in the side where we've blown in insulation to just the first retrofit was just trying to get some insulation in the walls. Um, so in 2013, I have information about I'm getting a beep. Is there a beep happening for anybody else? No?
Yeah, I'm
I,
hearing it too.
I'm also hearing a beep.
Yeah.
1 second.
Um, I'm just gonna mute the person who is tuning in via phone and
Oh,
see if
okay.
it's with anything.
Great. And I just spilled my coffee. Um, So I wanted to get a before picture. In 2013, we burned 1,100 liters of furnace oil. That's what we ran into. We were like climate activists who were buying a house from my in-laws, and we got stuck with an oil burning furnace. So in 2025 equivalent dollars, we spent about $2,000 just in that year to heat the house. Didn't include electricity for cooking hot water, um, transportation. That was all extra. That's about a minivan a year. So that was what we were looking at. So this is the after. This is what it looks like now. A beautiful, nice, comfortable home. And then this is where we are at now. So we're 100% fossil free, fuel free. I kind of feel like that's one of the criterion for a climate friendly homes tour. No fossil fuels. It's powered by electricity. We charge two electric vehicles. We do have a 12 kilowatt array of solar panels, and we preheat our domestic hot water with hydronic solar panels. In 2024, our bill was under $1,000. And just driving a gasoline car for a year is about $1,200. So um, these are the kind of numbers that you share with someone personally, and it has an effect. So here we are on the Climate Friendly Homes Tour 2025. And one of the issues that we're going to probably talk about is when do we have these things? Because we didn't have that many people come to our house this year. In 2023, in the fall, we had 150 people. And this time we had about six. So this is, I think, our discussion is going to be about different communities being different. This tour in 2025 was on Earth Day in Maple Ridge, and all of the climate people were running around town doing all kinds of other different climate-related things. Nobody could, and they were all scheduled at exactly the same time. So that for Maple Ridge was an issue, and I think that New Westminster has the complete opposite. They had this. I'm going to let them talk about that. It looked amazing. I think in Maple Ridge, probably we need to schedule it on a different date outside of Earth Day or in the fall. And just super quick, because this is what we went through to get where we were. We lifted the house. We built a completely new foundation and basement, and then we put the house back down. So lots of photos to share with folks when they come and visit. With that, I'd like to hand this on to Cheryl.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I am so curious about what goes into lifting a house. And with that, we'll hand it off to Cheryl Lewis from the New Westminster Climate Action Hub. Ashley will be sharing her screen, which will have Cheryl's slides. You, mm. Ashley, do you have the slides? Cool. Amazing. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to share our experience with the Sustainable Home Info Sessions event, which was a project of the New Westminster Climate Action Hub and held under the umbrella of the Climate Friendly Homes Tour. The Sustainable Homes Info Sessions is a bit of a mouthful, so I'm just going to be referring to it as SHISH for this presentation. So next slide. Oh, so SHISH was a success with over 170 people attending. There was 3 properties included in the SHISH event, that actually, but 4 houses, because one of the properties had a newer construction laneway house, and the other 3 properties were just like on their retrofit journey. We kind of had a theme as like, this is a journey. All of our homes actually still have some part, some fossil fuels used. So we really, just talked about this is the journey. This is what we've done, and this is what we plan to do. Okay, next. So how we think there was multiple components of why this was a success. And starting with how we communicated this event, we communicated that this event is being, we took a holistic approach to climate change. We brought in emission reductions, adaptation, and biodiversity. We think that resonated maybe with people. Oh, next. And next again. Okay, there was also an active transportation component. We had secure bike storage for all bikes, hub cycling. We worked with hub cycling. They gave a tour. Next. And we think that that concept really drew people in. Next. And also partnering with the City of New Westminster and with the Climate Friendly Home Tour, we think that gave the event some credibility. And so we think that partnership worked really well. Okay, next. We also had info sessions, and that definitely drew people in. And we were extremely fortunate to have very qualified speakers talk about these, different topics. So next. And so we had 6 different info sessions. 2 of them were engineers. One was an adjunct professor of nursing. One was provided by the city. One was a naturalist, and one was like a gardening educator. Next. And they talked about topics that aligned with our, how we communicated the event. So on decarbonizing, we had a master electrician, a class A electrician. We had an electrical engineer talk about, decarbonizing. For adaptation, we had an engineer in stormwater management talking about adapting to atmospheric rivers. And we also had the nurse talked about staying safe at heat events. We had a gardening educator talk about gardening for food, beauty, and climate. And we had the naturalist talked about promoting biodiversity and creating bird and pollinator habitats. We think that this drew people in. Okay, next. And we also think they learned important information from it. So this event was also very solutions orientated. It was an opportunity to share with neighbors what you have done in your own home, talk about maybe what you plan to do in the future. And we think it was, people like to actually, see solutions, talk to people that are completely unbiased, talking about their solutions. And we think this was encouraging and inspirational. And not really on the slide, but I didn't actually make a slide about another kind of success that this tour brought to to our New Westminster Climate Action Hub. And there was actually three things. So one, it really increased the radar of the New Westminster Climate Action Hub with the mayor and the city council. The mayor spent all day, he biked from site to site. He was kind of like, I don't know, kind of in awe of it. He was so impressed. He's worked with other counselors. We've had multiple meetings with him afterwards. He came to our last hub meeting with another counselor. So our connection to the city was really um, an increased relationship with the city was really a good result of this. Another good result was somebody came from BCIT who was developing a curriculum on decarbonizing homes. And they didn't actually reach out to us and identify themselves till after the event, but we've been having communication with that person, um, and maybe even a bit of an ongoing relationship. I've been invited to a BCIT talk tomorrow that's primarily for architects on passive cooling, so that's really cool. And then the third thing is we really networked with other groups in New Westminster and built relationships like with Hub Cycling, Pecha Kucha, the Community Garden Association. So there's been a lot of um, positives that came from that resulted as a result of this event. Okay, next. So one thing that wasn't such a success was we tried to make this event inclusive of, for residents of condos and apartments, and we pulled together some resources, but it wasn't really a success. We really weren't that surprised by that. This area is more challenging. More work needs to be done. So that was something that maybe wasn't such a success. Okay, next. Okay, again, the cycling component, a huge success. We were also the good weather helped. The good weather helped for the day of, and the good weather certainly helped for people wanting to get on their bikes. So that was really good. Okay, next. So the feeling of community at this event was really a bonus. It's not something we planned to do, but it really had a community feeling. There was a lot of people hanging out, talking to each other. We don't have the data, but we think people stayed for probably on average over an hour at each property, which was fantastic. They were having fun. We think that maybe it was, having it in people's backyards and people's homes gave it a friendly feeling and made people want to like engage with one another. One person that attended, as they left, they said, "I feel like I've been at a family gathering." So that community feeling was really a bonus. And actually, the only reason we added this question in our survey was we thought that if we could bring in a community angle for applying for a grant next time, that would help. And so we're really quite surprised and pleased with how the positive marks we got on the sense of community. Okay, next. So inspired to take action, that was great. Lots of conversations with the volunteers there and of course each other, learning from each other. Next. So just in general, people liked this event. They had fun at this event. Um, One thing about this event though was our goal was to almost use the homes to bring people in and really make it about something kind of like larger scale about climate change. So we developed these, we called them core resource boards, and they were like, one was the context, like where Canada was with their emissions in the G7, where BC was with their emissions and how far from the target. We brought in these context boards. We brought in, boards on biodiversity and things like that. But for the home part, we had three resource boards that had four different sections. One was like, so we broke it down to people. So one part of making a climate resilient home is decarbonizing systems and appliances, enhancing energy efficiency, designing for passive heating and cooling, and behavior change. So, so that's what we tried to do, and we think that was pretty successful, getting to talk about bigger things. And we also think it was part of the success, and it's how we marketed it, is this, there will be something there for you too. Even if you don't own a single family home, there will be something there for you too. Okay, next. Okay, so we had some activities which were fun. There was the Find Me, Learn About Me with by every native plant. There was a painted stone and an information board about what how that particular native plant supports biodiversity. We also had this drawdown top 10 global solutions game, um, which was a success. So on the lower right side, this is like all the different top 10 were put in tomato plant containers. And at the other home, they were on posts, but the objective wasn't to get it right, but just to have fun getting a handle on what are the top 10 solutions globally. Again, to that bigger scale thing, a few of us are in our hub cycle, probably our newest hub, are facilitated with Regenerate BC. So Karen is, Kristen is, her home was one of the tours. They're both in the audience today, and myself. And we kind of almost wanted to make this like an interactive Regenerate BC experience. And I think that was pretty fun. Okay, next. Okay, we had about approximately 40 volunteers. This event was a lot of work, bordering, I think, on what volunteers can really do. And we had 40 volunteers and we thought we'll be pretty well. I personally thought we'd be floating in volunteers. And really at the end of the day, we thought, wow, if we had more volunteers, it maybe would have even been more of a success, especially I think knowledgeable volunteers because people came, they're already, kind of maybe quite often knew something and they wanted to learn more. But yeah, the volunteer engagement was wonderful. They had a good time. I think they had a good time. We got good feedback from the volunteers and it certainly helped. So next was just more pictures of our volunteers. I think we have another slide of volunteers. Oh, okay. Okay, now we're on to marketing. All right, marketing. We put quite a bit of effort into marketing this on like a lot of different channels. There was a lot of word of mouth. Karen was like going to all of our like fitness classes and yoga classes and handing out brochures and talking to people. And we all were keeping brochures in our bags. If you talk to anybody, whether you're buying art supplies and they seem interested, or you're talking to an arborist and they seem interested, like give them a brochure. We had brochures to our neighbors. We networked with other groups. We networked with businesses. We think we got some business just through the Eventbrite process. Um, and of course, like, the city supported us, the library, Van City. A talk was given at Pechakucha. The New West article was one of their last articles before they unfortunately went out of business. Facebook groups, and then the digital marketing that the city was able to do, it was also marketing the climate friendly home tour were fantastic. So there was a lot of effort putting into marketing, and we think we got to the point where people were telling us that they'd seen it multiple times. Oh, I saw your poster, I saw this, or saw it on the digital board and heard about it at, from somebody. So we think we kind of penetrated, and once people saw it a couple times, maybe they're more likely to register. Okay, and next. Yep. Anyway, so this wouldn't have been possible without the support of the City of New Westminster and the support of CEA and the Climate Friendly Homes Tour, which funded this event. It was fantastic. So anyway, that was our experience, and it was a good experience. We were quite pleased with the outcome.
Yeah, that is incredible, Cheryl. And yeah, I love to hear about how the partnership and having folks from Regenerate BC also added that education component. So it wasn't only about, home retrofits, but it had a much more fulsome, interconnected conversation and story connected to it, It's not just about homes, but it's about the broader climate movement and biodiversity. And yeah, great.
Oh, on that point, can I respond to that? There's something I didn't mention. We had a lot of supporters of this. So Regenerate BC was a supporter of our event. Um, One of our Aggie who hosted her home, she was a board member for Kane. Her husband was a board member for Cape, so they both supported our event. Um, the Caribou Heights Forest Preservation Society was a supporter. Hub Cycling was a supporter, and we thought that also gave it. I hope I'm not missing any supporters, but we think putting them on our marketing material also elevated the event, and there was also more groups to network with and blast this information out to.
Totally. The building of, a strong supporter base or a loose coalition of folks that are all kind of in it together definitely adds a lot to the event. And then also, of course, the amplification of that as well. I just have a couple questions that are happening in the chat really quickly, and then I'll move on to Kirk, who I see has her hand up. So was this held on Earth Day, Cheryl, as
It
well?
was held on the day of the Climate Friendly Home Tour,
Okay, so the
April the 26th.
April 26th, right? So like Earth Week generally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been confusing because I mentioned Earth Day, and in Maple Ridge, Celebrate Earth Day Festival is held on that Saturday. So it was like a few days after, and that's a huge event in Maple Ridge, and a lot of the focus of the environmental movement is on that event. So that's what we were competing with on that day.
Mm, nice. And I guess like Lisa, like when CEA was kind of like imagining the climate friendly homes tour, like uh was it specifically to have all these tours happening on one day, or do you think perhaps in the future it might be a little bit more flexible on the dates of these tours?
No, for sure. Great question. It was originally envisioned as a kind of a BC-wide everything happened on the same day, just thinking that that would help elevate that event, that this was happening, everyone was in it together, sort of thing. But absolutely, after kind of getting some of that feedback, I think there is absolute room for flexibility and just depending on like the community and what their needs are. I think that makes perhaps a lot more sense, just given, yeah, just different timelines and conflicts and other things that might be happening. I think originally like our first one that we ran, we actually did run it in the fall in October, and it was to coincide with, I think, Energy Efficiency Week. And so we had that same thinking of like, oh, if we tie it in with other things that are happening, that might, again, like elevate it. But an unintended consequence of that is it actually adds to more competition then. So
Yeah, and I think we're at the beginning stages of this. And I think anybody who has participated in a climate friendly homes tour at their home or participated, it's a real warm, fuzzy feeling, and I think it's going to continue. And I think it's amazing what New West did with putting that's kind of how much work you need to get to launch it and get it into people's brains that this thing exists and that it seems. Really puzzling at first, I think. Really, I can go to someone's home. Like that sounds wonderful. People love to see people's homes. And I really hope that once you get that going, I think it's going to start a ball rolling. And I would like to see in Maple Ridge and other communities similar events where partners come together and do things on the same day. Maybe one in the spring, one in the fall.
Yeah. Karen pointed out in the chat that New Westminster didn't really have any other New Westminster like Earth Day events. So we had no competition.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And just really quick before I lose this question in the chat, what was the foundation you used, James? Was what someone was asking.
Well, it's part of the story. I'll try to be brief about it because part of the story of retrofitting a house is finding a contractor that you can rely on and actually shares your goals and doesn't just say, "Yes, I share your goal," but doesn't. So it's a standard poured concrete foundation. I was working with an energy advisor who said, definitely put a floating flat slab, put foam underneath your basement slab, but I did not get the memo that you can put foam and separate the footings of your foundation as well, just like they do with Passive House. And so that's one of my regrets. But very difficult to find a renovation contractor who you can trust. So that's that's where we're going.
Mhm. That's a good takeaway for those who are retrofitting.
Hmm.
Now to move on to the many hands that I see up. Kirk?
Thanks. Oh my goodness, Cheryl, that is so inspiring. I just kudos to you guys, and I can imagine how much work it was. I have a few questions, and I'll try and make them really brief. They're pretty straightforward. One was, where were the learning sessions held?
They were held in our yards. So we most of our budget went to tents. But yes, we had like at each home, actually one of the homes didn't have tents, but they were in our yards or one of them held them in their house. So
Oh,
that's where they were.
and then, so when people registered, they could see what sessions were happening at what time in which place.
Yes, so we had a brochure that we distributed, and information was on, of course, the climate friendly home site that had each site and when those topics would be and where. So each one, and when people came, they tend to have looked at that because a lot of people, when they checked in, like their Eventbrite check-in, they knew what topic they were coming from and they kind of asked like where is it? So the info sessions we really think brought people in.
Yeah, I'm sure that it sounds fantastic. And you may have said this, but I missed it. How many homes did you have altogether?
We had three properties. One of the properties had a newer construction laneway home, which was all electric, which is cool because that had things like, a ceiling mounted like heat pump inside and an ERV, energy recovery ventilation, outsolation, more kind of higher end things, right? But we do think that our three homes that were all like older homes, one was actually a heritage home. Um, Actually, all of our homes are really quite old. Mine's over 70. Kristen, how old is your home?
1929.
Yeah. And the Aggie's home was over 100 years. So kind of really presenting it like this is a journey. You don't have to be perfect. We are not perfect. And actually noting kind of like the things that we want to do and how over the years we've kind of done what we've done and this is more what we want to do. We think that made it more approachable for people that are coming that want to do their own retrofits that it's just take it one step at a time, have a vision, make a plan, and with that plan in mind, execute
Hmm. Hmm.
over years even.
How did you do the survey? Was it online or was it on paper or combo?
The survey was actually quite challenging. We were going to do it. We'd looked in advance and we thought this would be quite easy using SurveyMonkey, and they said you could merge it with Eventbrite. And it turns out, and we had a really sharp mechanical engineer volunteering on us on this really young and techie, and they just couldn't get it to work. But also, once we finally got the survey done, we realized that everything we wanted to do was like extra. In fact, to do what we wanted to do, which was nothing, it was pretty basic, was going to cost us over $500. So anyway, we had to like, there's lots of last minute action going on about we had to take questions away, we had to change questions so that we wouldn't be using these features that we like if we wanted to use it for free. So that was a challenge. Also getting the results. We didn't get as many results as we wanted. We only got 26. So that survey data was based on that 26. That said, it kind of like matched up with like our own observations and things like that. So we think those results were probably pretty good because we've had a lot of debrief with people that came and the volunteers and whatever. So, but yeah, the survey was challenging. We would do things differently if we do it again to get more robust feedback.
And you talked about partnerships. Were those funding partners, or how did you get funding for the event?
Climate Friendly Home Tour pretty well funded it all. City of New Westminster provided a lot of in-kind contribution, which decreased the amount. So they gave us as many tents as they had. Um, Oh, they,
Easels,
they did
poster
some printing
board.
for us. So they did quite a bit of things. So
Mhm.
which brought the cost down.
Mhm. Great, thank you. It was fabulous.
I totally echo that sentiment. Just moving on, and just so folks know, we're gonna have to wrap up the Q&A after Kristen and Juliet. So just so that we make sure that we leave room for the wider discussion. So Kristen, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to add, Cheryl's covered so much of what we did as for the info session homes, but which was 3 to 4 homes, depending on how you count it. And I think there were actually 9 total. Lisa probably has that number, 8 or 9. So there were other houses in New Westminster on the Climate Friendly Homes tour that same day. They just didn't have the info sessions at them. And I think the numbers were a lot smaller for the attendees, is what I heard. Like one house only had like 2 people and one had 12 or something like that. Um, so we don't know, was it that like I guess it just led me to think it's the info sessions that were really drew people in. And then I thought using Eventbrite was pros and cons. I mean, we did it because we wanted to know, is anyone coming? Like ahead of time, we wanted to have a sense of, is it 300 people or 10 people, or so that was gave us comfort that we knew ahead of time it was more than like 150 that had signed up there, I think at least to start a few days before the event. But it also was good because it gave people a reminder. You know how you get those when you sign up for Eventbrite. So there's some pros and cons of using Eventbrite. That's all. Thanks.
Right on. Thank you so much for adding that extra clarity, Kristen. And yeah, Eventbrite can be a fickle beast for sure. Move, is that all you had to add? Awesome. So Juliet, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm coming to you from Kelowna, and I just have a quick question. Is the website for the event called climatefriendlyhomestour.ca? Is that the is that
Mm.
where we can get a lot more information about
Yep,
signing up our city?
that's it.
Okay, great.
And
And
Lisa's
I
put
can
it in the chat.
Oh, good. And New Westminster is right on the top. There's all the information on your event there. Cheryl, that's awesome. Congratulations. This is really inspirational what you did. And so the one thing about Kelowna is that we have during the holidays, we have these homes for the holidays tours where people decorate their homes with Christmas stuff, like completely, like even the bathrooms are are decorated. But I would love to see this for like sustainable home information in Kelowna, where we're always faced with droughts here. We're at ground zero for climate issues like forest fires and droughts. I think this would be great. And I can't I'm looking at the website and it doesn't look like Kelowna's ever had this.
Well, I mean, that's a great idea for next year. Or hopefully you can take some of the lessons learned here, Juliet, and maybe apply
Yes.
this time. I know Climate Reality would be happy to offer some support in that as well.
I think this would be a good time to jump in. Maybe Lisa has something to say as well. In terms of getting communities, there is a certain amount of at the beginning, getting encouraging a community. Um, uh, there's got to be sort of a champion in that community, and it can be anyone. It can be someone who's on city staff. It can be a counselor on city council. It can be a member of the community, a local builder, a homeowner who's done it and is feeling lonely. Um, Anybody who wants to reach out, especially to CEA, Lisa especially, and ask about it, you'll get support from them, and you start talking it up in your community, and that's where you go.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much for that, James. Yeah, we absolutely are very happy to support any community, but we do need that champion. And we actually work quite close with Kelowna as well. And so having someone on staff or on council to support that initiative is incredibly valuable as well. As Cheryl mentioned, it helps lends a bit of credibility to the tour, but also just having that partnership with the city so that they can also help promote. And market the event, provide whatever support, whether that's in-kind support, any resources, anything like that. So yeah, absolutely any time that we can create more collaborations and partnerships, the better.
And in terms of reaching out to homeowners and finding the homes, which are really crucial, if you don't get in touch with, like, there's a climate hub in the community. I did some work recruiting homes on behalf of CA in the city of Richmond, and it was quite fascinating the different responses that I got from even green builders, people that energy advisors that you'd think might know a homeowner who's very enthusiastic, but it was really solar installers that really came through. There were two or three solar installers that were excited about the idea, that recognized the opportunity that they could be on site promoting solar panels, their own company. That's welcome. Um, and so they passed on a few key homes, including the 1981 home. Um, yeah, you just don't know who is going to be the magic connecting piece that gets this off the ground. Not everybody has a New Westminster climate hub, and those four amazing people.
I will say in the case of Kelowna, though, there is the new, so the Home Energy Navigator program there. It's like retrofit concierge program to support homeowners in accessing the rebates and navigating the retrofit journey. So that could also be a really good place to start as well.
Can you repeat that? Home Energy Navigator, is that what you said?
I will find the link and pop it on the chat as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
No problem.
I know we've had a few clubs pop up, but they don't seem to stick around very long. There's a few that have some staying power, but yeah, I'll look into these.
Incredible. Tracy, I see you've got your hand up. Okay, we'll have time for one more question, and then we've got to move on to the discussion. I know we've only blocked in an hour for this call, but if folks want to stay around past the hour, we can keep the call open until the 15-minute mark passed. So 1:15. But yeah, Tracy, why don't you go ahead? And then we'll start.
Yeah. So I'm also in Kelowna, Juliet. And Chris Ray might be someone you would at the city. So CRAY at kelowna.ca would be a good person to
Oh
reach
yeah.
out
Yeah,
to.
we're on LinkedIn together. Right.
Okay, great. And then the other thing was there was one of the current councillors. I don't know if he was a councillor at the time. I think it was before he was elected. He has a net zero home, I think it is, a carriage house that was built. And so he did a tour of his home, and there was a lot of people that came to that.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
yeah, and I would love for us to have something here, but I'm kind of wondering as well, like I would like if there's any passive houses that have been built in Kelowna as well to be on the tour, and really any help in who to contact to sort of find out who has these homes would be, yeah, the suggestions that have come up are pretty good so far, but yeah, any and all suggestions on how we would find out who has these homes that are retrofitted or passive house or
Yeah, thank you for that,
anything.
Tracy. You're right. Chris Ray at the City of Kelowna and
Todd Brunner.
yeah, and I would imagine Joanne over at Foundation. She has a foundation out of Vernon as well, and she's pretty plugged into the community. But yeah, that's a great idea about Chris Ray. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll put an email in the chat for you if you want to contact me.
Thank you.
Incredible. I love the collaboration that's already happening. And thanks again to our speakers for sharing such amazing, valuable insights. I love learning about the climate-friendly homes tours and how they've been going in Maple Ridge and New Westminster. So now that we're at the discussion portion of the call, I do want to acknowledge that it's been a while since we've had a BC-wide space for folks in our Climate Reality Network to connect. And I know that there's been a lot of incredible, impactful work happening across the province. And in fact, a lot of that work has been led by the people right here in this call. So I want to turn it over to you. So this space is to share information about what your hub or community or team has been working on. It's a space to reflect on what you've learned so far this year or share what's next on the horizon and ask any questions or offer support or spark connections with others in this room. So feel free to put up your hand if you want to share put up your hand if you want to share, or you can drop your thoughts in the chat, and we'll use this time to lift each other up and celebrate our work and learn from one another. I'll also be putting some prompting questions in the chat to help guide the conversation. And with that, I'll pass it to Lori from Penticton.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to see everybody and to have this wonderful presentation, and it's so inspirational. And I've been wanting to do climate-friendly home tours since I saw they were doing it in Invermere or something last year or 2 years ago. And I'm with First Things First Okanagan Climate Hub, as well as the Okanagan Climate Action, as well as the Okanagan Climate Hub with Tracy and a bunch of other people. And actually, tonight we're doing a deep dives webinar on permaculture, and it's also about living lightly on the land. And we hosted a Vernon group to do one of our deep dives a couple of months ago, and it's called Home Zero Collective. Because we do not have a concierge here, we do not have retrofit assist. Our city is working on it for 2 years, trying to get funding and trying to get CEA support, or like in Kelowna, they have the green cities or whatever. So without that kind of concierge and guidance, I have not been able to move forward on any kind of retrofits. And the Home Zero Collective actually comes in and looks at your energy audit and helps you figure out your rebates and your budget. And they even get the contractors to come in and do the work. And they can buy appliances like heat pumps because it's bulk purchase, so the costs are way reduced. And they did 11 homes in Vernon. They have a data from what they did and how they've reduced emissions by 90%. And we need that all across the province. We need to have them scaling up and doing hundreds of homes like this, or having someone to do this kind of project management, because